lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendent knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Patita Pavana Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jaya Ratha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Chachanaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayaratha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayaratha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayaratha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayaratha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nittai Gaura Hari Bol Taigo Premanande Hari Bol Jayam Vishnu Padpanamsa Parirajacharya Sutra Satashimadesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Go Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, verse 67. No? Kashtvat padam jam vijahati pandito. Kashtvat padam jam vijahati pandito. Yaste vamana vyavyamana ketanaha. Yaste vamana vyavyamana ketanaha. Yaste vamana vyavyamana ketanaha. Yaste vamana vyavyamana ketanaha. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smat yat. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vino papatim manavaschatur dasha. Vino papatim manavaschatur dasha. Vino papatim manavaschatur dasha. Vino papatim manavaschatur dasha. Kastvat padam jam vijahati pandito. Kastvat padam jam vijahati pandito. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smadyat. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vino papatim mananavas chaturdasha. Vino papatim manavas chaturdasha. Kashtvat padam vijahati pandito. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vino papatim manavas chaturdasha. Kastvat padam vichahati pandito. Kastvat padam vichahati pandito. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vino papatim manavaschatur dasha. Vino papatim manavaschatur dasha. Vaishnavis. Kashtvat padam vam vijahati pandito. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vino papatim manavas chaturdasha. Kashtvat padam jam vihahati pandito. Yaste vamana vyayamana ketanaha. Vishankayasmat gurur archati smayat. Vino papatim manavas chaturdasha. Kaha. Who. Tvat. Your. Pada abjam. Lotus feet. Vijayhati. Avoids. Panditaha. Learned. Yaha. Who? Te. Unto you. Avamana. Deriding. Vyayamana. Decreasing. Ketanaha. This body. Vishankaya. Without any doubt. Asmat. Our. Guruhu. Spiritual master. Father. Archati. Worships. Sma. In the past. Yat. That. Vina. Without. Upapatim. Agitation. Manavaha. The Manus. Chatu Dasa. 14. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, his entire life is spoiled. Knowing this, how could he give up worshipping your lotus feet? Even our Father and Spiritual Master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you, and the 14 Manus followed in his footsteps. Purport. The word Pandita means a wise man. Who is actually a wise man? The wise man is described in Bhagavad Gita 7:19 in this way. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavamam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti samahatma sudurlabha. After many births and death, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Thus, when a wise man actually becomes wise, the wise man actually becomes wise, after many births and whimsical attempts at self-realization, he surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Such a Mahatma or learned person knows that Krishna, Vasudeva, is everything. Vasudeva Savam Iti. Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Learned persons always think that life is wasted unless they worship Lord Krishna or become his devotee. Srila Rupa Goswami also says that when one becomes an advanced devotee, he understands that he should be reserved and perseverant, kshanti, and that he should engage in the service of the Lord and not waste time. Avyartha kallatvam. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 23:18-19. He should also be detached from all material attraction, viraktihi, and he should not long for any material respect in return for his activities, mana shunyata. He should be certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him, asha bandhaha, and he should always be very eager to serve the Lord faithfully, samukanta. The wise man is always very eager to glorify the Lord by chanting and hearing namagane sadaruchi, and he is always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord, ashaktis tat guna kayane. He should also be attracted to those places where the Lord had his pastimes. Pritis tat vasati stale pritish tat vasati stale. These are symptoms of an advanced devotee. An advanced devotee or perfect human being who is actually wise and learned cannot give up his service at the lotus feet of the Lord. Although Lord Brahma has a long lifespan, 4,320,000,000 years constitute 12 hours in a day of Brahma. Brahma is afraid of death and consequently engages in the devotional service of the Lord. Similarly, all the Manus who appear and disappear during the day of Brahma are also engaged in the Lord's devotional service. In Brahma's one day, 14 Manus appear and disappear. The first Manu is Svayambhuv Manu. Each Manu lives for 71 yugas, each consisting of some 4,220,000 years. Although the Manus have such a long lifespan, they still prepare for the next life by engaging in devotional service of the Lord. In this age, human beings only live for 60 or 80 years. And even this small lifespan is gradually decreasing. Therefore, it is even more imperative for human beings to take to the worship of the lotus feet of the Lord by constantly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Trenat api sunichena, taror ivas saishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtanya sadahari. When one is engaged in devotional service, he is often surrounded by envious people, and often many enemies come to try to defeat him or stop him. This is not new in this present age, for even in the days of yore, Prahlad Maharaj, who was engaged in devotional service of the Lord, was harassed by his demoniac father Hiranyakashipu. The atheists are always prepared to harass a devotee, therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suggested that one be very tolerant of these people. Nonetheless, one has to continue chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and preach the chanting of this mantra, because such preaching and chanting constitute the perfection of life. One should chant and preach about the urgency of making this life perfect in all respects. One should thus engage in devotional service of the Lord and follow in the footsteps of previous acharyas, beginning with Lord Brahma and others. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Could we close the door there? Thank you. Om Jnanatimirandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvi Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namo Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Papanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, any learned person knows that unless he worships you, his entire life is spoiled. Knowing this, how could he give up worshipping your lotus feet? Even our father and spiritual master, Lord Brahma, unhesitatingly worshipped you, and the 14 Manus followed in his footsteps. Hare Krishna. So this is the second last shloka of the Rudra Gita, right? It's interesting, there is many Gitas. Mainly we refer to the Bhagavad Gita, but there is the Uddhava Gita, and of course there is other Gita, the Gopi Gita, so many Gitas actually, and here we have the Rudra Gita, and of course I haven't been here for the last 2 months, but you were going through all the shlokas, the prachetas. After finishing the pasam of Prithu Maharaj, then we heard about the descendants of Prithu, and then finally about the prachetas who were performing tapasya on the order of their father, and then they came across Lord Shiva, and Shiva then gave this mantra or these prayers, the Rudra Gita, so they can chant this Rudra Gita and in this way get perfection. And tomorrow is like the last shloka, which is a summary, and then we hear about the Falashruti of this Rudra Gita and so on. But here we hear this a glorification, and it says that who would not worship the Lord, right? Everyone who is wise should worship Krishna. So we can see how many wise people are in the world today. Not so many, because mostly people are atheists. And it's interesting, people think, no, I don't believe in God, but we don't know. If you just look objectively, does God exist or does God not exist, right? We can say, well, there is maybe 50% chance that he exists and 50% chance that he doesn't exist. We don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. So if you're not sure, then what is more wise? To live a life as if God would exist, or to live a life as if God does not exist? What is more wise? Because if God actually exists, of course, the problem is people don't even know who God is or what God is. They just think some religious belief. But if you reflect, what if God exists? I mean, who is God, and what kind of person He is? So if you know that if there is a chance that He exists, you better worship Him. Because the consequences of not worshiping are quite severe. If you're worshiping Him, then you have a good life anyway because you're pious and you get good results and you live a good, healthy life. And if at the end it turns out it doesn't exist, not so much harm. But if you live as He not exists and then He's there, you really got a problem. But people, of course, think that there was a campaign in the UK and it spread all over Europe. Stop worrying, enjoy life, because God doesn't exist, something like that. Because some Christians, they made advertisement on the buses, God is with you or something, some Bible, and then some atheists they got annoyed, and they made a campaign stop worrying, just enjoy life. God, it doesn't exist, and that's very much to the point of the atheists, because they just want to enjoy life, and the fact that there's some religious people and there's some shastra or some idea that someone is watching you, they feel very disturbed by that. Because, all of a sudden you have to follow some rules, and you should not do that, you shouldn't do that, So then that's really once there was a poster here in Zurich, it says, Gott stört. God disturbs. It's like God disturbs my enjoyment in this world. I want to enjoy. Why this? Is God? It is this concept of a God. It's very disturbing. But that's not very wise. It's not very intelligent to think like that. It's completely just like, I just want to enjoy and just give me a break and leave me alone. It's not very wise. And here Prabhupada very nicely says thus when the wise man actually becomes wise after many births, he starts to worship the Lord. And he really surrenders unto the Supreme. So we may question ourselves, how wise are we? We are wise because we came to Krishna consciousness. We have some intelligence. We understood, okay, I think that makes sense. God exists, maybe better we should worship Him. And yes, Krishna makes sense, so let's become a devotee of Krishna. But how much have we actually surrendered our lives to that process? Because the more we actually have surrendered our lives to the process, the more we are wise, the more we actually have understood. Because this Bahunam Janmanam Ante, after many lifetimes, he actually surrenders. It means he fully surrenders. There's no hesitation anymore. There is no doubt anymore. There is no, just, that's it, let's go for it. The other day I posted a blog about a book review on Indra Kirtan Revolution. Have you heard about that book? It came out during Kartik. It's a biography of Indra Prabhu. I read it during my treatment. I read it in a couple of days. It's a 400-page book, but I read it quickly because it was so fascinating. And I could just speak about that, but such a fascinating personality. But one point that fascinated me the most is that he just had such conviction. And he also got support, we have to say. The first night in the ashram, he decided to join the Hare Krishna movement. He joined the ashram, and then in the night, he had a vision. Some celestial beings came and told him, stay here, don't ever leave this ashram. That's the right place for you. This is your chance to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So he was convinced. It would be nice if that happened to every new bhakta, right? Maybe we should make some arrangement. So he had that, he was very subtle. He had this connection. He had many dreams and visions. he became very convinced, and later on he told one devotee was a bit mental. Sometimes we are mental, right? We have some doubts, or we're a little bit, we're not so sure whether. So then Indra preached to one devotee who was mental. He said, what's wrong with you? He said, I did all kind of nonsense before I joined, but then I read one book of Srila Prabhupada, and after I read the book, it was clear. The goal of life is Krishna Prem, to go back to Godhead, and from that point on, I just kicked out all nonsense and just surrendered to Krishna. Why can't you do that? He said like that. And if you look at his life, he really did it. He really did it. It was just like phew, straight. There's no looking back, or did I miss something, or maybe I still could enjoy in this world. No. Basically, that's the mantra of a sadhu. The mantra of a sadhu is that there is no pleasure in this world. There's nothing to enjoy in this world. That's the mantras of the sadhus. Those who know, there's nothing to gain in this world. We just have to finish our business and go back to Godhead. And that's what is a Bahunam Janmanam Bhante. He really got the point. He really understands, and he really surrenders. So Prabhupada basically makes these 3 points in the purport. He says that the wise, those who really wise, they worship at the Lord, and then he gives the different symptoms of such advanced devotees. Then Prabhupada makes the point that even those with the long lives, like Brahma and the Manus, they have such long life, but still they're afraid of death, and they know I better have to hurry up, and it's quite amazing. I have to hurry up. I have to prepare myself. I have to be serious about my Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada says even human, they have maybe 60 years, maybe 80. Average, they say 88 years, which gives about 4,000 weeks. Maybe not. It's about 4,000 weeks to live. In my case, already about 2,660 weeks or so passed. More than half of my life is gone. And if you consider how fast weeks, it's again Tuesday, and then again, weeks are passing so fast. So it's not so much. So that's why better we should get serious about Krishna consciousness. And the last point that Prabhupada makes is that that's why we should take to chanting and preaching the holy name, but it's not so easy because there is many atheists who are envious. But we should continue, we should be tolerant. That's basically the 3 points that Prabhupada makes. And let me see here. Yeah, so at one point we spoke about this becoming very convinced, that becoming really wise, that Krishna consciousness is what we need, and not hesitate. But the problem is the conditioned soul. As a conditioned souls, we hesitate to really surrender, right? And as I mentioned, even though we may become devotees in Putti Lok and everything, but still in our hearts we still hesitate to really surrender. And that's why Guru needs to speak strong words. That's why when we read Prabhupada's books, it's so powerful, because Prabhupada again and again makes the point. When I was in Orissa, we heard the story. There was an old widow lady. She was very old, she was alone, she was, her body was very weak, and she didn't have any means to survive, to live. So what she did, she went to the forest, she was collecting some wood in a forest, and then she was selling that wood on the market. But while she was carrying the wood every day, she was calling out, oh, I'm such a miserable life. Oh, Yamaraj, why don't you come and take me? My life is useless. Why don't you come and take me? So one day, Yamaraj showed up. I'm here. Who are you? I'm Yamaraj. What are you doing here? Well, you called me every day, so now I'm here. I'm ready to take you. And then she said, but today I got such good quality wood. I can get so much money from today selling wood. Maybe you can come another day. So that's the mentality. That's the mentality. Theoretically we understand this place is miserable and let's go back to Godhead. But then when death approaches, then we still hesitate because we still have attachment. We still think we can do something here also. So that's our condition, and that's why we need to hear Krishna Katha. We have to have this sadhu sangha. When I was in Orissa, we heard it again and again. But it was such a good point. That the main point that I took from these 3 weeks of hearing Krishna Katha was that we are weak. Our heart, we have weakness in our hearts. We are really weak, and we need to get strength, spiritual strength. And how do we get that strength? By sadhu sangha. We have to hear. And by hearing Krishna Katha from the lips of a pure devotee, then we get strength. And so basically we have to place such a sadhu in our heart and surrender to that sadhu. And by listening Krishna Katha, then we become our heart and our mind, we get strength, and with that strength we are able to surrender. Otherwise there's no chance. And Narada Muni is such a powerful preacher, and we will hear now some of the pastimes that we will now hear in the next couple of chapters will be Puranjana. The Narada Muni will preach to the father of the Prachetas, King Prachini, and then he will give the analogy of the Puranjana. And even after he heard the king understood the analogy, but still he had doubts. And then Narada Muni gives another analogy, which is the analogy of the deer. And it's interesting. It's very short, it's only 3-4 shlokas, but it's powerful. The analogy goes like this. There is a deer grazing on grass and enjoying with his mate in a garden of flowers that are very aromatic. The deer and female and male, they're in a garden. And his ears are attracted to the songs of the swarms of the bumblebees. There's nice bumblebees, nice sound. He moves about without considering the hungry tiger in front of him. A hunter is behind him ready to shoot him with arrows. So that's material life, really we enjoy, everything is nice, So basically the deer is the man who is absorbed in household life, in the company of his wife, and thinking of sex life. And he enjoys the talks of the wife and the children, the bumblebees. The sweet sound is the children, with the broken language, Papa, Mommy, so sweet, so cute, and the wife is so beautiful, and then life is so nice. But then, and of course, it's not to condemning household life. But it's condemning the danger that comes with household life. Because if we enter household life, the danger is that we forget about the ultimate goal, because it's so charming, it's so sweet. So yes, we may enter the Grihastha ashram, but we shouldn't forget about the tiger and the hunter. And the tiger represents time, and the hunter represents death. So, and that's the point, that we should always remember that time is there and time is running out, and death will come, and death is the ultimate test that will test. There is a proverb in, I think, Bengal: the time of death will test our bhajan. We do bhajan every day, we chant, but then we just continue for many years. So there's no exam, it's not that. Now today we will test the quality of your japa. Temple president comes, and it's usually not happening. Everyone goes on, but the time of death, then the quality of our japa will be tested. So that's Jai Jagannath Baladev Sugara Maharani ki Shishivanitai ki Jai. Quality of our japa, the intensity of our prayers, the very sexually our consciousness is absorbed, that will be tested at the time of death. Yes, so that's why Prabhupada says in the purport, one who is advanced, there are certain symptoms, and actually the symptoms you may have recognized. These symptoms are from the nectar of devotion, yes, and these are the symptoms of one on the platform of bhava, actually. And it's interesting because usually there is different characteristic of the ecstatic symptoms, which are shivering of the body, the hands, the hair stand on end, and sometimes even the body, the color of the body is changing, and all kind of external symptoms, tears flowing. But these symptoms, anyone can, of course, the changing of color may be a little difficult, but shivering and crying and tears, you can imitate. So someone could imitate. So that's why these symptoms, which are also symptoms of bhava, they are more relevant because these are difficult to imitate. You can't really imitate. Either you have these qualities or you don't have, because they are much more, yes. So we can go through these symptoms. So what was the first one? So remember? Shanti? Shanti? Kshanti. Yes, Prabhupada speaks here about. Okay, yeah, here in this one. But actually, when we go through the Rupa Goswami's list, the first one is Avyartha Kalatvam, which is he's always anxious to utilize his time in the devotional service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day, without deviation. He wants service always, 24 hours. That's music in the ear of the temple commander. He wants service always, 24 hours. Please, Prabhu, give me more service. I want to be engaged in service. Prabhupada says, an unalloyed devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Krishna is always engaged his words in reciting prayers to the Lord. Within the mind, he is always thinking of Krishna, and with his body, he either offers obeisances by bowing down before the deity or engages in some other service. During these ecstatic activities, he sometimes sheds tears. In this way, his whole life is engaged in the service of the Lord, with not a moment wasted on any other engagement. So that's like fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness always. And yeah, not wasting a little time for anything else. Yes, that's the ideal. And that's why Rupa Goswami also in the Upadeshamrita speaks about the danger of wasting time through prajalpa. And Prabhupada also, Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they explain that prajalpa does not only mean to speak nonsense. Of course, speaking nonsense is what takes a lot of time. We waste a lot of time just talking this and that. But then also it includes, reading newspapers, magazines, and of course, although Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't mention Facebook, but certainly that belongs in the same category. all these social media things. Of course, you can use it for preaching. That's okay, but or communication. But in principle, it's such a danger that we waste our time with these things. But yeah, it's just something we can reflect ourselves. How much are we kind of worried about our time management? It's an important aspect in our life. Like, how do I manage my own time? And how do I... Because actually it's not... Sometimes people say, I don't have time for this. It's not true. It's always a question of priority. We have time for everything. Everyone has 24 hours a day. And whatever you want to do, you can do. It's only a question of priority. And if you have the proper priorities, you can do anything you want. But that requires sincerity in how you want to use your time. So that's one of the symptoms. Then perseverance. When a person is undisturbed even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, he is called reserved or perseverant. And then Prabhupada gives the example of King Parikshit, that although he was cursed to be killed by that snake bird, he still was sober, sitting at the Ganges and listening Krishna Katha without becoming too much like he was sober. So one should become very sober and tolerant in all circumstances. That's another symptom, and you can't imitate. Like that's very, very severe. You can't imitate that. Either you have developed or you have not developed it. Then detachment. The senses are always desiring sense enjoyment, but when a devotee develops transcendental love for Krishna, his senses are not longer attracted by material desires. This state of mind is called detachment. And it's actually very nice purport Prabhupada gives in this, our summary of Rupa Goswami's point, because it describes what really detachment means. There is a nice example of this attachment in connection with the character of King Bharat. In the 5th canto, 14th chapter, verse 43 of Srimad Bhagavatam is stated, Emperor Bharat was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Krishna that even in his youthful life he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, kingdom, etc., as though they were untouchable stools. It's quite a graphic language that the Bhagavatam uses. But it's powerful because, whenever you pass stool and you push the button and the flash, have you ever felt like, oh my God, I lost something valuable? Never happened, no? Like, just flush it down without looking back. It's like, there is completely no attachment to it. So, and King Bharat, he left that which is most dear, which means, the kingdom, the wealth, power, position, family, wife, the loved ones, that which is most dear, he left that in the same spirit of renunciation. I mean, how is that possible? It's incredible. You can't imagine, because actually detachment can be a very painful process. Like the vanaprasthi stage of life is meant to detach yourself from the family life. Like usually, okay, you got some training in the youth, and then you enter Grihastha life, and then for 25 years, 30 years, you live with family and children, and you become very attached. It's very strong bondage. And then in the vanaprasthi ashram, the idea is to detach yourself slowly. But that's a process, it takes years. And it's not so easy to detach truly. But here Bharat, he just walked away. Of course, we know the story later on, he got attached to a deer. He became very attached to that deer, and that's what his fall down. But still the example is there. So then Prabhupada explains further. Emperor Bharat provides a typical example of detachment. He had everything enjoyable in the material world, but he left it. This means that detachment does not mean artificial keeping oneself aloof and apart from all allurements of detachment. Even in the presence of such allurements, if one can remain unattracted by material attachments, he is called detached. In the beginning, of course, a neophyte devotee must try to keep himself apart from all kinds of alluring attachments. But the real position of a mature devotee is that even in the presence of all allurements, he is not at all attracted. This is the actual criterion of a detachment. And that's, I think, an important point. Because sometimes we think detachment means like as a brahmachari, women. Now I'm detached, I'm just trying to avoid ladies. But that's not detachment. That's just the other side of the coin. I'm aversion and attachment. It has nothing to do with detachment. And of course, as Prabhupada says in the beginning, it's important that the neophyte, the students, that physically, externally, they also keep distance. That's natural, so they can learn. But the actual test is that even if you're close, you're still detached. That's why Grihastha ashram is actually a more advanced level, or it requires more qualification than brahmacharya. That's why it's called, at the end you say adhikari, one who is a Grihastha. At the end there is adhikari, that means he has the qualification to be in that ashram. Because although he is close to the object of enjoyment in the sense for a man and woman, or for women and men, still he is able to control. And that's the test, and that's what is required. Of course, the mood of one in the renunciation, like I remember, Ayendra Prabhu again, he says, if you plan to fast, why go to a feast? Like if you want to be renounced, then why enter a Grihastha ashram where you get a feast? Like you want to fast, so it's more difficult then. So just keep aloof. But yeah, the point is that the true test is that you're always detached. So how to come to that platform? What would you say? How does one develop such a mature detachment that one is completely aloof, and even amongst when in touch with all the allurements? How to do that? Taste for Krishna, param dristva nivartanti. You want to say something else? Yeah. So that's the first thing. We need a higher taste, because only when we develop a higher taste, then we can give up a lower taste. In the life of Ramanuja Acharya, there is this one story. There was a great procession outside the temple. In South India, usually they take the Utsav Murti, the deity, they take out, and then they do a procession. And the Utsav Murti was on an elephant. Everyone was worshipping the Lord and looking towards the Lord, and many devotees were there. But then they noticed, Ramanuja was also there, and they noticed there was one man with an umbrella, like a sun protection, and a chamara, and he fanned nice air to a young lady under the umbrella, and he looked all the time to the lady. Everyone else was looking to the deity and worshipping, but he was like looking to his girl. So Ramanuja noticed that, like this fellow is, like we are worshipping the Lord, and he's such a lusty fellow. He's completely lost with that lady, like completely lost. So then he told his servant, please call him. So then the man was, oh my God. The Ramanuja wants to talk to me. What happened? So he went there and he's asked, what happened? Is this your wife? No, she's not my wife. She's the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. She has most beautiful eyes. Then Ramanuja says, if I show you more beautiful eyes, will you leave her? And he was like, it's not possible. She has the most beautiful eyes in the universe. And he come this evening to the temple. So he came, and then the Ramanuja gave him darshan of Ranganath Swami, and then it's usually everything is dark in this South Indian temple, and then the priest comes with the ghee lamp and shows the lamp. See the Lord, and then they show the lamp, and then you see it. We went there with the pilgrim group, and my brother came with us. He's not a devotee, so he was quite new. And then the priest came. See the God. He showed a lamp there. See the God. My brother. See the God. Anyhow, he went there with the lamp. See the God. And then they saw the beautiful lotus eyes of Ranganath. And by the mercy of Ramanuja Acharya, that person, he could see. He got some darshan. He could understand. Wow, such beautiful eyes. You're right. These are more beautiful than my girlfriend's eyes. And he became a great devotee. And the girl, they eventually married, and they both were devotees. It's not that he kind of just left her. She was beautiful, so he still got engaged with her. But he could understand that the Lord's eyes are more beautiful. The Lord is the object of love. Yes, we may have a relationship in this world. We love each other. But the actual object of love is Krishna. And that always should be the center, that should be the understanding. So there in Krishna consciousness we get the higher taste, and that will help us to become more and more detached. And of course, ultimately, the ultimate detachment is only when we actually have this bhava or this love. When we develop pure love for Krishna, then ultimately we completely become detached. Because we understand bhoga and tyaga are not meant for us, like who we are. We are eternal servant of Krishna. We are meant to serve Krishna. Krishna is the enjoyer, Krishna is the controller, and we are just his servant. There's no question of bhoga, there's no question of tyaga. No, bhoga means enjoyment. We are not meant to enjoy. Krishna is the enjoyer. And there's no question of renunciation, because what can you renounce? You're not the possessor. If you don't possess something, how can you renounce it? It has never belonged to you. Krishna is the controller, he's the possessor, he's the enjoyer, and we are simply his servants. So when we understand this and develop love for Krishna, then naturally we become detached from everything. And that's what is wanted, that's what we have to strive for, to develop that loving relationship to Krishna, that we very naturally just fall in love with Krishna and become detached from this material world. And then there's many other qualities that Rupa Goswami describes, like becoming very eager to chant the holy names, to speak about Krishna, to be in a holy place, and so on. But time is up. Hare Krishna, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. May we become wise, like it says here, Bahunam Jamanam Mante, truly wise, and dedicate our life to Krishna. We go how long? Question answer is already over. Completely finished, huh? Okay.
Babu, you said there are two different coins. One is like the attachment to the woman, and the other is the aversion, that we have this unhealthy behavior towards them. And this is not good, that we have this anger and bad behavior towards women. And then sometimes I see we have, maybe we say now we are detached and we are dealing freely with the opposite sex. So we are embracing, we are doing everything, Grihastha, Brahmacharya, it doesn't matter. And then we say we are more advanced than you, because we have free mixing and everything, and we are more advanced than you. So, but I think there must be some line. Can you say something about this, that we are detached, but we don't live it out?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a relevant point, and therefore we have culture. We have Vaishnava etiquette. Culture is meant for that. This will give us the protection. Because we may claim this or may claim that, but basically we are all somewhere, practicing devotees, sadhakas, and we're still all working towards these higher realizations. So while we are on this path, while we are purifying our hearts and developing these higher realizations, then we try to behave ourselves according to the Vaishnava etiquette, and that etiquette and culture protects us. So yeah, that's important. And it's true, like here in the West, also amongst devotees, we sometimes don't like so much follow etiquette, because we are not used to it, and it feels like a little bit sometimes maybe artificial or a little stiff, to follow this Vedic style, and let's just be friends. But it's important. We should try to apply the etiquette and culture as much as we can. And as a society, of course, it's a collective consciousness. Some yatras, some places are maybe more into that culture, and some are less. And we might not be able to change that from today to tomorrow, but from ourselves we can try to be a good example and promote the culture, and hope that others will pick it up and also live it. At the same time, we shouldn't be too much judgmental and critical to those who don't follow it. We can try to do it ourselves,